Episode 6 of The Mandalorian is here, and I have to say, my favorite two episodes were Episode 2 and Episode 6, both directed by Rick Famuyiwa. I was actually kind of surprised. I was like, man, I love that episode. That might be my favorite episode. I wonder who directed it. And I went to the IMDb page and I was like, okay, all right. When this guy makes an episode, it just hits me in the right spot. This might be my favorite episode. As you can tell, this video is a little bit different, a lot bit different. Me and my wife closed on our new house on Wednesday. We moved into the new house on Thursday. Friday was a day spent going through boxes, getting internet installed, and I woke up super early Saturday morning today to watch this episode. My office is not put together. I'll do an office tour when it's all finalized eventually, and I'll give a little tour of the house, but I loved this episode, man. As I was watching it, I just thought to myself, this is kind of what the show's been missing from me. Banter, sarcasm, poking fun, a little bit of history and headbutting and stuff like that. I loved the entire crew that was put together following The Mandalorian. The Twi'lek was such a fun character. Bill Burr's character, Mayfeld, had the perfect sarcastic tone, tough guy attitude. When it said that he's a former Imperial sharpshooter, and The Mandalorian says, that's not saying much. Mayfeld, Bill Burr's character, turns around and he says, I wasn't a stormtrooper, wise ass. And that kind of sets the tone for the entire episode with his character. I'm a huge Bill Burr fan. I've loved his stand-up for years. And to see him in Star Wars is such a joy. I'm consistently surprised to see, actors that I've known for a very long time pop up in the show. When Mark Boone Jr. popped up in the show, I was like, hell yeah. I haven't seen him in anything for a long time, but he's such a great actor, man. He brings such a gruff and gritty vibe to the episode, putting together this crew. I love him as an actor. He's such a natural. And the crew that he puts together is so much fun to watch. It's a mixture of wacky, they're all eclectic. They give the Mando shit. There's history with the Twi'lek girl. It's just a really fun crew to go on this job with. They all have their, unique and interesting quirks and way of doing things. I loved the way they all interacted as they're getting to know each other, as the Mandalorian is getting to know them. It's just a fun bunch. I mean, there's so many little moments between the crew and the Mandalorian that made me giggle, that were just fun and needed. A little lightheartedness. As they're on the Mandalorian ship going towards the job, they're talking about him removing his helmet, and Bill Burr's character says maybe he's a Gungan, and he says something about he puts on like a Gungan voice. It's funny. It's a good little moment, and I just love seeing these characters kind of butt heads and poke fun. So yeah, they're going to a New Republic prison ship to rescue a prisoner. That's the job that they need to take care of. It's a prison break. It feels very train robbery. It feels very blow a hole in the wall and get the prisoner out of the prison in the Wild West town. I loved this episode. As our crew is walking through the prisoners, there's prisoners looking out the doors at them passing by. So some of my favorite shots in this entire episode were just that, like simple panning shots passing a door as our characters are looking at the prison doors, with prisoners peeking out, like what's going on. I loved it. It's very subtle, but I just loved how it was. There's a moment where these security droids pop up on the New Republic ship as our crew is walking down the hallways, and our crew is outgunned. They're hiding behind the walls. They don't know what to do. They're pinned down. The Mandalorian he's nowhere to be seen. And Mayfeld says, I knew it, as if to say, he's a scaredy cat. He's going to run at the first sign of danger. He's not as tough as everybody says. Once again, I just love that moment. I love his delivery. But then we see the Mandalorian pop up behind all the droids. He just takes complete care of them, puts up a great fight, takes them all down. None of the crew help. I don't know if that's because the ultimate decision at the end, because, the Mandalorian, it seems, was never supposed to survive this job or get off of this ship. They were going to leave him behind anyway. Maybe that was them trying to let the security droids take care of it so they didn't have to. Or maybe it was just them being, amazed and marveling at the Mandalorian's fighting skills, I suppose. There's a scene where our crew, they're in this control room, right? And there's a human there. There's a guy there. There's like a prison guard there. But apparently, this entire ship was supposed to be nothing but droids. This throws everybody off. They don't know what to do. There's a standoff. It seems like the crew wants to kill the security guard. The Mandalorian doesn't want to. He said no humans would be on the ship. He was taken back by it. In the standoff that happens between everybody is so great. The Mandalorian tries to reason with the crew. The crew obviously wants to put this guy down. He has a tracking beacon that if he hits a button, the New Republic fleet is going to come in and just decimate the ship, and I guess it's like a dead man switch almost. There's a big standoff. The Mandalorian tries to reason with this guy, put the thing down, we'll let you live, all that kind of stuff. Mayfeld is they're pointing guns at each other. It is such a great standoff, two completely different mindsets on how to get out of this situation. And then the Twi'lek girl, I can't remember her name, but just throws one of her knives at the guy and ends the situation completely. But just overall, I love, there was so much tension there. It was just an all-around really great moment. So long story short, our crew find the prison cell where the guy is that they need to get out. There's a history between him and the Mandalorian. They end up pushing the Mandalorian into that cell, locking the door behind him. He's stuck now. Eventually he gets out. And the episode turns into a haunted house. The Mandalorian becomes the architect of a haunted house, a maze, a carnival of horrors. When he gets out, he goes to the control room, he starts shutting doors, all the red lights come on, and he goes on the hunt. There's no communication with the crew and the droid now because the Mandalorian shut that down, and the Mandalorian becomes the boogeyman. Now, obviously, if you watch the episode, they all survive, but I thought he was going like person to person, killing them. I guess he just captured them and threw them into a cell. I don't know. But as we're going, we're following the crew sneaking around. They split up. The Mandalorian is taking them down one by one. I believe the guy with the horns is from the Devaronian. Is that how you say it? You recognize that species in the cantina in A New Hope. But the fight between the Mandalorian and him was fun. Shoots fire in his face, does nothing. I just loved all the interactions between, the individual crew members and the Mandalorian in this haunted house moment. Mayfeld's kind of, I guess, death scene, whatever, it wasn't a death scene, but when the Mandalorian kind of comes behind him, you just see kind of a strobe light in the background. The Mandalorian is approaching. He's getting brighter and brighter, and as Bill Burr, Mayfeld is walking down the hallway, and at the last moment, Mayfeld goes, "No!" because he knows the Mandalorian is behind him. He turns around and the scene cuts. I loved it. I loved it so much. So yeah, in the end, the entire crew is in a prison cell together. I'm assuming they're going to come back in a later episode. As I've said, this entire season has been fun because we're, hopping from place to place, new characters every single time for the most part. And it's just a constant pace, constantly on the run, constantly going on new jobs, constantly interacting with new characters that the Mandalorian is often familiar with in some fashion. There's a little history there. Ultimately, the Mandalorian brings the prisoner that they were hired to, bring back. He brings him to the client, drops him off. As the Mandalorian's flying away, Mark Boone Jr.'s character says, "Kill him," and a gunship is about to take off, but the Mandalorian slipped the tracking beacon into that prisoner's pocket. So the New Republic is honing in on this location. We see X-Wings pop out of hyperspace, start firing at the gunship, start firing at the, the station. Don't know if it completely gets blown up or not. I would assume so. I don't think there was a big explosion scene at the very end of that. But yeah, it was a fun little clever twist. I loved how it ended there. Oh, there was another moment where the droid Zero is going through the Mandalorian ship because he was the eyes and ears of the operation. He actually finds the kid, Baby Yoda, and he's going after him. There's a moment where Zero is walking through. He has the kid cornered, and the kid raises his hand to use the Force, closes his eyes, and Zero explodes. And it's a nice little twist because the Mandalorian is standing behind him. He shoots Zero right in his circuitry, his head, and it was just a nice little moment where you think the kid is going to use the Force. You think the kid did use the Force, and the Mandalorian is there to save the day. There's also a Dave Filoni cameo that was really fun to see. I love X-Wings. They're my favorite ships in the entire Star Wars franchise. They're the workhorse of the fleet. I just love them through and through. And to see some nonchalant radio chatter between 3 X-Wing pilots and Dave Filoni being one of them was a whole lot of fun. And I believe, now that I think about it, are these all directorial cameos? Oh yeah, definitely. Rick Famuyiwa is one of the X-Wing pilots. Oh, that's really cool, man. And that's Deborah Chow, who is what was the director for Chapter 3 of The Mandalorian. So this is a nice little directorial cameo scene. You have Dave Filoni, you have Deborah Chow, you have Rick Famuyiwa. This is really neat. I didn't put two and two together when I was watching the episode. I was just kind of focusing on, hey, that's Dave Filoni, but that's really cool, man. That's really cool. Anyway, I love this episode. It had great banter between characters. It had an incredibly sarcastic tone at times. Bill Burr, I loved him in this episode. And just this episode was all around fun. It was entertaining and, man, knocked it out of the park. Anyway, time to unpack some of my crap. HelloGreedo, out.